Well, I've never done an intro for a podcast before, so this is going to be new. Welcome to a brand new podcast with me and Mr. Embreezy. Welcome, one, and hopefully more. We are the United Front podcast. We decided on a name. We did think about calling it 21 Good Minutes, the 6-star potential podcast, but that might have been a little bit of plagiarism. So
just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. So we settled on this. We're planning on it being a weekly affair where we'll discuss all things and everything football. Obviously, eyes on the Uniteds, West Ham United for Breezy, Man United for myself, and maybe a little bit of other things, video games and FM and things like that thrown in there. Should we want to discuss it? But yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a while since we've actually sat and chatted, to be honest. So
I think I generally think the last time we had a genuine sit down chat was probably in London a few weeks ago, or not even that, a few months ago now, probably. Right?
Yeah,
so we're up in visiting the FM studios in Stratford. Had a lovely evening with an open bar. It was good.
yeah. All they said was there's free pizza and free drinks, and I was on the train immediately.
Yeah, I remember very little of that evening. I'll be completely honest, but
I remember the start of it, and then it kind of deteriorated, slowly but surely.
Yeah, thankfully, I don't think we were the most intoxicated of the group of people that were there that evening. But the less said about that, probably the better.
Yeah, sure. That's quite an incriminating. Well, I'm sure we've got incriminating things. Well, we'll get started then. We're recording this on what day is it? Wednesday, the 9th, and it's been, I'd say, before today, a very quiet and stressful transfer window as a West Ham fan for yourself. And today, everything's happened. It looks like James Ward-Prowse is a done deal. Obviously, Edson Alvarez is on the way. Harry Maguire seems to have a deal.
We can stop there if you want. That's all good. We can.
There may be rumours for Paqueta to Man City. There we go.
There it is.
And obviously, the business has already been done. We've got Declan Rice has left. Skamaka's gone. I think Vlasic went yesterday as well. Obviously, he's not really been a part of the playing stuff for a little while anyway.
No.
But yeah, do you want to we can use this as an open therapy session for you. We can.
Oh man, do you know what? Before today, I was coming before last night and today happened with all the Paqueta stuff. I was generally ready to come in and be like, I'm just gonna vent and just because it's been a pretty, I think, disastrous transfer window. I'm actually curious to get a neutral fan's opinion of this, and because I like to think I'm usually pretty level-headed and pretty well-balanced when it comes to West Ham. I don't like to sort of just freak out for no reason, like the majority of Twitter seems to do.
Well, that's just Twitter, isn't it? That's just any social media platform.
That is just what it does. But since the famous night in Prague 8 weeks ago, where we won the European trophy,
of course,
we've known for ages that Declan Rice was going. It's been no secret. We've had about at least 12 months to plan for this. And the season starts as we're recording in 3-4 days. Yeah. And we're just about to maybe get a couple of signings in place who may or may not be ready for our first game of the season against Bournemouth. And we've lost Rice. Skamaka's gone, which I'm personally gutted about because I'm a big fan of his, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. But
I'll be honest, I didn't even realize he'd left. I thought there was discussions about it, but
it was one of them, man. All window, Roma want him, can't afford him, and we're not going to. So I was like, oh, it's fine. No Italian club can afford him, so I've got nothing to worry about because we're going to want most of the money we pay for him back. And then Atalanta weirdly got about 70 million quid out of somewhere, so not sure how that happened.
Back of the sofa. It's easy for some.
Yeah,
but it's a lot of players left that, so that's what I've got it noted there. The about 150 million quid out, with nothing coming in. Obviously, you've lost what would have been what you were hoping would have been your starting striker, your captain, midfielder. But with the rumours of what is done and what is about to be done, how are you feeling about it? I think that James Ward-Prowse and Edson Alvarez as a midfield two is a stronger pair than Rice and your other bloke, Souček. Which says more about Souček than it does than anything.
It absolutely does. Yeah, well, because at least with Ward-Prowse and Alvarez, there is two competent footballers there. Whereas last year, it was one incredibly competent footballer, bordering on world-class level of footballer, and a wardrobe, essentially. So,
like, yeah, but a wardrobe who scores about 3 goals from headers.
And even then, there were very few and far between in recent years. It feels like I honestly, before today, I was sitting there yesterday thinking to myself, okay, Alvarez is like a 6, just sit in front of the back 4, or maybe back 3 with Maguire coming in, but let's say it's a back 4. Alvarez sitting there as a defensive midfielder. I think he replaces that part of Rice's game really well. Hopefully, anyway, from what I've seen of him, really, really strong addition. Like Champions League level player. Chelsea wanted him like last year.
He's very good player,
this season. Like really, really good player. Maybe not as like aggressive with his passing, or that's not really the type of player he is. I think he's just an out-and-out defensive midfielder. And I was thinking, okay, if we get Ward-Prowse in, him, Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, and Paqueta as like a midfield 3, or like a double pivot with Paqueta playing further forward, works really well. There's a decent bit of balance there, like especially with Paqueta's, like he's not just a skillful flair player; he also does the dirty work as well.
Yeah.
Now
he really grew into it the second half of the season as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he had a rough start, and then.
Yeah, it took him a while. You could see. I was there for his debut against Spurs, and obviously watched all the games at home he played since then, and like it was so obvious the talent he's got. I remember saying to my mate that like in his first few games, you can tell he's still in like Leon mode, where like he's playing for one of the top teams in France, where he's used to being in a team that dominates the ball and used to having more time to do what he wants. Whereas in the Premier League, especially like not even just playing for West Ham, but in the Premier League, you get such little time to breathe on the ball. It feels like, ironically, unless you're playing against West Ham, then we'll just sit off and let you do whatever you want. But like, which is probably like you're probably used to that in training. Probably when it gets to game day, it's like, oh god, this midfielder's chasing me. I'm not used to this. You could see like once he got used to the speed of the Premier League, he was flying. And man, if the worry for me is if he goes, and it looks like I think there's a few fans who think we might be able to keep a hold of him. I just think when City come calling, like, come on, like like he's obviously going to want to leave, and I don't think he's going to kick up like a Dimitri Payet level of fuss where he's going to go on strike or refuse to play or anything like that. But I think he's pretty much already told the club he wants to go. And now my concern is, well, now what? Because like it looked like the midfield rebuild was pretty much done with Ward-Prowse and Alvarez. So now what the hell do you do to replace Paqueta? Because Ward-Prowse can't do what Paqueta does. Alvarez definitely can't. And the only other midfielder I've seen us linked with is Scott McTominay, and he definitely can't do what Lucas Paqueta does. So as much as Scottish fans want to tell me how good he is for Scotland, like he may well be. He's not Lucas Paqueta. So
no, he's not Lucas Paqueta. I mean, obviously, I can come at this from a United side. Like I've seen him play a lot of football. I like McTominay as a player. I just don't. I don't think he's at the level that United are looking for, or that kind of midfield dynamic that United are trying to build. I think he'd actually suit being in the West Ham squad, because it looks like you're going for a much more like physical, like physically dominant side, and his late runs at the box, his timing of the runs is always really good. So it could be one of those things where it actually.
Well, from the sounds of it,
out.
he's a Souček replacement. Like that's what I've been told from people who've watched him. He's not a 6. Don't play him as a defensive midfielder. Get him as an 8. Just up and down, up and down, up and down.
I'd say he's a better version of Souček.
Yeah, which if that's the case, great. But even then, a midfield 3 of Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, and McTominay, I just don't know. Apart from Ward-Prowse and his set pieces, I don't know where the creativity comes from. That like Ward-Prowse is a very, I think, quite an underrated passer of the ball. Actually, I actually, when we were linked to him, I went and found the YouTube video of and someone had made it specifically and removed all of his set piece goals, because they were like, I think they were trying to prove the point of like he's not just a set piece merchant. And I was watching him play and watching the way he passes the ball and distributes it and switches play and wins the ball back and stuff. He actually reminds me a lot of Mark Noble. I think there's actually like set pieces aside, I think there's generally, in terms of just the way they play, very similar type of player. Yeah. Yeah, nearly a one club man. We've kind of ruined that. But like there's a lot of similarities there, but I still think you need some level of creativity. Like Fornals is great, but again, just not quite on the same level as if anything, Fornals would have been good playing next to Paqueta, but we never got to see that happen just because Moyes apparently only has room for one creative player in his team, and that's it. So
and now we're trying to get rid of them all. So
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, we're not doing that. I saw a great. I've got to find the tweet. It cracked me up yesterday. So this is the perfect like summary of West Ham's like last 12 months. This is it. It says West Ham are hilarious because they tried to be a bit more progressive and exotic for approximately 6 months before they packed it all in and reverted back to full UKIP footballing approach.
The irony of it is like you hear loads about people going on about the West Ham way of football. It's like the only way that I've known West Ham play is this. Like, so it's like I don't even know what the West Ham way means.
No, I don't think anyone does. We do good attacking football for like 6 months, and then it all goes down the toilet, and then this happens. We revert back to type pretty much. So
then you panic and win a European trophy. So
yeah,
swings and roundabouts.
No chance of that happening this season. I don't think. Like my biggest frustration with West Ham this season, and it all comes like. A lot of people blame Moyes for how the transfer window's gone because, we brought in this director of football or technical director from Leverkusen. And apparently the rumor is that Moyes doesn't want to sign any of the players that guy's recommending, which I understand is frustrating. But ultimately, for me, the blame lies with David Sullivan because Sullivan had a choice to make after the Conference League final. You either back Moyes and keep him on, or you shake hands, go, thank you for everything you've done for us, David. We're going to go in a different direction now. It's time to part ways. And then you get the technical director in. Then you get a manager in who is in line with that technical director, and it all works in harmony. Or you give Moyes a 2-year extension because he's now in the last 12 months of his contract, and you say, thank you for winning us the cup, David. You were right. We trust you. We're giving you the next couple of years to build the team in your image. Because what you've now got is a situation where you've got a technical director that's not being listened to. So it's essentially just there doing nothing. You've got Moyes in the last year of his contract, and there's a reason why he's going after players like Ward-Prowse, Maguire, Scott McTominay, like just Premier League experience proven players, because he can't afford to take any risks. Because if it goes pear-shaped for him this season, he's gone. So it'd be easy for us to sack him with 1 year left on his contract. So you can't take a chance on like a Skamaka or a Paqueta and them needing 6 months to settle or anything like that. And it's just it's just typical David Sullivan, where it's like, oh, I want to be like Brighton and get a technical director in, but I'm also going to keep the manager who refuses to work for a technical director or with a technical director. And it's just this halfway house between, we want to take this next step to be a bit more progressive and forward thinking as a club, but also, David Moyes won us a trophy, so we kind of got to keep him. And it's just like, if Sullivan had a little bit more bollocks about him, maybe we wouldn't be in the situation, but this is where we find ourselves. And it's all right though, because Harry Maguire's coming in. So
well, I was just about to say, like, you brought in Edson Alvarez, who's a big midfielder. You've got maybe McTominay, like those rumors are still floating around. He's 6'4" or something, great in the air. Harry Maguire's coming in. You've already got a bunch of big lads at the club, and you've signed James Ward-Prowse. You're essentially, I think you said to me earlier, you might win the Streamer Showdown.
Yeah, it feels very. It's getting quite close to a Clate system, isn't it?
Yeah. Just get as many big meaty lads on the pitch as you can and sling it in the box, sling it into that corridor of uncertainty, and you'll score some goals.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, I was just going to come on to Moyes a little bit. How are you feeling at the end of last season? Because obviously, like, we discussed it a little bit at the end of last year, where it's like, was it the perfect time for him to like walk into the sunset and go, there you go, like, we've won the trophy, we won a European trophy. I felt it'd have been a great time for him to go, my work here is done, like, you can move on forwards, like, you're losing your captain, there's going to be a bit of a shake-up and this change of backroom staff, and he's stuck around, like, it feels like he's sticking around for just one season too long. He's like the last season of Parks and Rec or something. Like, it's like, oh God, I wish I hadn't have done that.
Yeah, it would have been. I think it would have been the perfect it would have been the perfect time. And ultimately, it was always just going to be down to him, because as much as I berate Sullivan, and I do think it would have taken an almighty set of balls to sack the manager who's just won you your first trophy in 40 odd years. So, like, I can understand why he didn't do it, but then also don't go and get the technical director if that's the case. But for Moyes, I think it would have been the right decision for him to walk, because if he'd have walked after Prague, his legacy, like, no one would have remembered the Premier League season of last year 10, 15, 20 years down the line. They'll just remember sixth place finish, 7th place finish, Europa League semi-final, Europa Conference League win. And that's David Moyes' West Ham legacy. It's a pretty, like we're talking top 3 West Ham managers of all time.
Yeah. And one of the most successful, like, in terms of league finishes and trophies won, outside of the big 6 in my lifetime, like, that I can remember. I mean, Leicester, yeah. Who else has really done anything like that?
No, and he would have walked into jobs of a similar level had he walked. Like I know he was linked with Celtic. I think he would have walked into the Celtic job if I don't know, Palace ends up parting ways with Roy Hodgson, or like Wolves are looking for a new manager. Like clubs like that would have taken David Moyes, and I think he would have gone and done a good job. But I think now the risk of it going so badly pear-shaped this season, which it's looking, I'm feeling a little bit better about this season given who we're signing, just because the expectation is they should, in theory, be able to come in and just hit the ground running straight away. But it feels like there's such a weird cloud over the club at the moment that it could just all go quite bad quite quickly. And if he ends up leaving like November and we're in the bottom 3 again, like that's what he's going to be. Ultimately, that's going to be sort of not what he's going to be remembered for, but it's going to be a big tarnish on what is going to be a pretty good legacy for him.
Yeah,
which is my concern for him.
From the outside looking in as well, it's my concern for West Ham. You know, I don't know if you West Ham fans obviously know yourself, but concern for you as a club is, you're strengthening your defense. I actually think that Harry Maguire will be really good for a David Moyes team. I think he'll be good for you. I think he's a good player. He just doesn't fit the kind of thing that United are trying to do right now. I think the midfield is strengthened, and like I said before, I think that that midfield is almost as good as last year's midfield, maybe a little bit better rounded if you're bringing in those kind of players.
Yeah.
My worry is who's at the top of the pitch. You got Jared Bowen, who struggled last year. You've got rid of your other striker. Your other 2 strikers are both either injury prone or can't score. And you've got a couple of left wingers who are okay. I know you were discussing Harvey Barnes for ages, and he'd have been a great signing, I think, to go on the left-hand side. But he's obviously, he's got a Newcastle. You can't really blame him. Like if the Champions League team comes sniffing around, you're going to pick there, aren't you?
Yeah, I think on the I will answer your question on the striker, on the Maguire thing, because I'll be interested to get your take on this. I agree with you. I think for this David Moyes West Ham team, I think Maguire's great. I think he's transfer fee and wages aside, as a player, he's basically a better version of what Craig Dawson was for us. And we loved Craig Dawson. He was an absolute god amongst West Ham fans. He was brilliant. My issue with it is, though, well, there's a few things. One, he's obviously coming in straight into the team. Otherwise, he wouldn't be joining us because he's not joining West Ham to sit on the bench. So unless we're playing a back 3, either Aguerd or Zuma get dropped. And especially with Zuma, based on footballing reasons alone, I don't think either of those 2 deserve to be dropped based on what they did last season. Like, I know we were bad, but those 2 generally did strike up a really good partnership. Or we're going to a back 3, which means I don't really think we've got the wing backs for that. So that presents another problem. The main issue for me is, though, good player for David Moyes, but that's the biggest issue. There's no guarantee Moyes is going to be here next season. He's going to be 31 at the end of the year. We're paying £30 million for him. And he's got to be on about 140, 150 grand max to come and play for us.
I think United are paying off quite a lot of his wages, the end of his contract. But
it's such a short term. Like, I get it. Zuma's injury prone. Aguerd's off to AFCON in January. I get it. But I would have much rather have gone for a Harwood Bellis for 15 million or a Jonathan Tah for 18 million, which was the rumored price. Someone who you don't necessarily have to chuck in straight away, but you've got that sort of bedding in periods if Zuma does get injured, or when Aguerd does go to AFCON, and you've got the European games, that's how you can bed those players in. But to do it on Maguire, I know we're lacking a bit of leadership at the moment, but I'm not entirely convinced of Maguire's leadership abilities. He's been your captain for the past 3-4 years, right? And I've seen people call him the worst United captain of all time.
He's the worst United captain in terms of captaining the club through its worst period in the Premier League in my lifetime. Not necessarily in kind of league finishes, but in performance, kind of feeling around the place. Remember the last 2 seasons, it was dressing room unrest, and it was all kicking off, and there's no leadership everyone's at each other's throats. We've been such a toxic club for 3 or 4 years, basically since Maguire signed, and it's starting to turn now. It's feeling like there's a better feeling about the place. The players on the pitch all look like they actually care and want to try and play football, which is something that I've forgotten that footballers could do watching United. And there is a bit of a sea change of the feel at United, and I think taking that captaincy off Harry Maguire and him not being on the pitch is a part of that. Maybe it's the pressure of Man United, maybe. So maybe somewhere else it might suit him a bit more. He might, that he's not going to have the media scrutiny that he would at United. He's not going to have everyone on his back. He'll probably have some people waiting for him to fail. But as soon as he gets his form back, let's not forget, like the first season or two at United, he was playing really well. I think I'd say he was one of the top 10 centre backs in the league.
Yeah.
In that system where we were soaking up pressure, defending our box, and hitting on the counter. He was great. He just can't play in the halfway line because he's not. He hasn't got the recovery pace.
No.
But that's not going to be something that he's going to have to deal with at West Ham. Mentality wise, like I say, maybe a bit less pressure at a different club. I'm not just blowing smoke up United's arse here. There's not many clubs where you've got more pressure. Like maybe Real Madrid.
I agree.
Like as soon as you slip up or off form a little bit, they are on you. It's not quite pigs' heads being thrown off the stands, but it's being slandered in every bit of print and written media and video media and radio station as soon as they can. It's a relentless atmosphere.
I agree, but I do think my concern is, like you said, he's sort of come from a time at United where it was, like you say, quite toxic, and I don't think it's quite that bad at West Ham, but there are some noises coming out of the club where it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And I do worry that if he's basically, is he going from one sort of bad situation and coming into potentially another one? That's one of my main concerns as well. But like I said, I agree. I think as a player for this season under Moyes, I genuinely think he's going to be really good. And I think he'll become a bit of a fan favourite by the end of this season. But I just think long term, I just can't for the life of me see why we're committing to such a massive outlay for someone who is likely going to be only good for 1 year. And like maybe the Moses replacement won't be someone who likes to play a high line, but if you've got this technical director and he likes to sign young, like sort of younger players and stuff, and this is the guy who brought Xabi Alonso to Leverkusen, or at least I don't know if he was responsible, but he was at least there when Alonso came in. You'd imagine that might be the way that we might go after Moyes. That usually seems to be the case anyway. You go from a sort of more pragmatic manager to a more sort of attack-minded manager usually. And if that's the case, where does Maguire fit into that?
I mean, you can still play a lower line and be a more attacking team. Like you can have more attacking intent and more attacking. It's all about how you set up, right? There's certain teams that do play, that kind of that transitional football where it's like you'll sit back and absorb the pressure a little bit, maybe keep the possession, but you're not expecting your defenders to sit on the halfway line. And so there are loads of ways to go about it. And I do think that he's a player that he's shown that he's. I always go by the best ability is availability. He's never injured. He's like when he was playing, he was always there. I think there was periods, like a 2-year period, where he played the most football of anyone in the world, or at least like in the top leagues.
Yeah.
And he was, he was consistently there, and he was consistently putting in decent performances. It's just this change of system that has kind of scuppered it for him at United. So, like I say, he could have a 2, 3, 4 years still in him. He's not 30 yet, I don't think. I think he's 29 or he's just turned 30.
So, I think he's just turned 30,
yeah. So he's still got he's still in the prime of his career, yeah.
Yeah.
4 years down the line, he might start slipping off, but it's not like he's going to lose his pace.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
it's
true.
like it's not like his game is a round pace. So
no. To quickly answer your question about striker, I'm pretty sure we're going to sign Amanda Broja on loan or permanently. Yeah, I can't see anyone else.
Well, you were linked with him last year as well.
Yeah, I think that's who Moyes initially wanted, and then Chelsea wanted to keep him, and then we signed Scamacca.
Then he fell off, didn't it?
Yeah, so it just seems to me like we're going to try going for Broja again. But obviously now Nkunku's out for Chelsea, I think we might probably have less of a chance of doing that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't sign another striker. I think Moyes will stick with Antonio, who apparently wants out, Ings, who doesn't fit the system, and Mubama, who, as good as he looks, is still only like 18. It's got he needs a full season of just more Premier League minutes, and you can't just chuck him in from the get go because he'll just get in alive, unfortunately. So I don't know. It's going to be a. I don't think it's going to be look. There's teams who are in way worse condition than West Ham are right now, especially with the news of the incomings and stuff. I think that is going to set us up to be pretty mediocre and comfortable.
This is a big thing, isn't it? It's like, okay, it might look really terrible, and then you look at what's going on at other clubs, and I think there is 2 teams that are nailed on to go down. You may as well put them in your in a league finish acca.
I think there are 3 teams personally.
Well, I think
we can get onto that later.
Yeah.
I think there are 3 that are. I think the relegation's pretty much tied up. I think.
Yeah.
Personally.
which is a shame.
Stay tuned, folks.
Yeah. Hey, here's hoping that it's not, and there is a bit of a battle. I mean, I guess you don't want that, but
no. Just 10th full season will do me absolutely fine. 10th for the Europa League run, I'll be happy.
Yeah,
but I've got to say, we're not the only ones who I say been making moves. All of our moves have been made in the last 24 hours. But obviously, a team who, for a club, obviously you're a Man United fan, you touched on earlier, Dan, and like for a club that I think usually this time of the year, I would say are pretty borderline incompetent in recent years.
Oh, recently, yeah, definitely.
This year seemed to have an actual plan and a strategy, and it seems to be coming together quite well. Obviously, Mason Mount was the first major incoming from Chelsea for about 60 million quid, which I think collectively, both from United fans and neutral fans, raised a few eyebrows. But I do think I think that's a pretty good signing personally. Obviously, Andre Onana is the big one, coming in from Inter Milan to replace David De Gea, which I think was a long time coming. I was at the game where he let the Benrahma one slip underneath him, and oof.
I think watching that, I think I was just in shock. I watched him he dived. It looked like he dived past it almost and flapped it into the bottom corner.
Do you know what he looked like? He looked like an FM23 goalkeeper.
He is the real life FM23 goalkeeper. That's what he is. Yeah.
I'm like upper tier at the stadium, and I was at the other end of the ground where the goal went in, and it took like 10 seconds to react because I was like, "Oh, that was a rubbish shot." Yeah. Wait, it's gone in.
It was a proper P roller as well, wasn't it?
It was awful.
But it was
never gone in.
Really similar goal that in the FA Cup final as well, and I think that was the final nail in the coffin for him. And I've got such mixed feelings with David De Gea because there was at one point, and I think 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, he was genuinely in the discussion for one of the best goalkeepers in the world.
Absolutely.
In terms of sheer shot stopping ability to keep a team in the game, because that was a period where this was pre-Bruno United. This was Chris Smalling at centre back, Man United.
This was like football heritage United.
Yeah, football heritage. There's no H in that. And he just put in unbelievable performance after unbelievable performance. He won, I think, Player of the Season 4 years out of 5 or something. And he was great. And it's just been this. It's been quite, I don't want to say a drastic change in the way that football's played, but it looks like his confidence got shot. Because I never remember him being this bad at playing out from the back. His distribution was never amazing, but he never seemed completely incompetent. And my big frustration with him over the time has been just his lack of dominance of his goalkeeping area. Phenomenal shot stopper, even though at the minute, or in the last season or two, there's been a load of errors coming in.
Yeah.
He's always been a goalkeeper, that seems just bungee corded to his goal line. And, after having goalies like Peter Schmeichel and Van der Sar who dominate their area, they'll come and claim crosses, that's their area. To see almost like a meek goalkeeper, hide away from things and rely on his reflexes to keep the ball out of the net rather than taking charge of a situation. I've said it for ages. I think he causes more issues than he solves with his shot stopping. And now his shot stopping's fallen off. He doesn't look like he could pick a pass. There was only one way it was going, especially when the dude's earning 350 grand a year.
I feel like he never really recovered from. I remember, I think it was either a World Cup or a Euros. Do you remember the Spain-Portugal game? I think it was Ronaldo got the hat-trick.
Yeah.
And he dropped an absolute clanger for a second, I think it was.
Yeah, it was almost I think it went through his legs. It was like Taibbi-esque.
It was awful. And I think following that, I don't think he ever got back into the Spain squad.
No, that was
maybe got a few squads, but he kind of lost his place in the Spain team from that moment on. And I don't really feel like he ever recovered from that.
No, definitely. And that kind of carried on into club form. And it's one of those things, you see it so often with goalkeepers. They have a horror game or a bad international tournament, and they're done. It's like their head is gone. I remember Paul Robinson, Leeds and Spurs keeper. Look, not world class, but England number one, really solid, really solid all the time. Had a clanger, and it was just done. His head went. Joe Hart. Similar.
Joe Hart, I was going to say.
You have goalkeepers like this. There's been others that I can't have. Scott Carson, I think, was similar.
Rob Green
as well. we obviously see it like more from the England keepers, but it seems like a real disproportionate amount of players that will have a bad few games and just never get back to where they were. Like it's just, it's like their confidence is gone. It's like a player who's done his cruciate, like never trusts his knee again. It's like a keeper's brain's broken. Like he just doesn't trust himself anymore. He just doesn't think he can do the thing. Like, so I don't know where he goes though, De Gea. Like I've got a lot of love for the guy. Like I say, I still think he goes down as a bit of a United legend for being
absolutely
for being so as good as he was at a period where we were so bad.
I was going to say there was a period where De Gea felt like the one bright spark in what was a pretty shoddy period for United, like that sort of Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho era. Like I remember the best things about those United teams usually was De Gea. Like most weeks you come away from a United game going, God, they were crap. How good's De Gea? Do you know what I mean? Like, and
100%.
I think very sad I think it's quite sad how it's ended with the whole like they offered a new deal and then withdrew it at the last minute and stuff. Like just a real lack of class and
that was horrible. Yeah, like granted, I think his time was up and I think he should have gone. There's no way it should have gone the way that it did. Like you say, pulling a contract offer off the table, not having a chance even just like to say goodbye, like or having a farewell game or something. Like it was all very
messy, wasn't it?
Messy. It's left a bad taste in my mouth about it.
Yeah,
you shouldn't treat players that have given 12 years to the club.
Oh yeah,
you shouldn't treat them like that.
No, definitely
no
not.
matter how much they fell off at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks like obviously new goalkeeper in Andre Onana. There's been obviously, I think there is that thing, isn't it? Because it's not just because it's United, because it's a big six club, right? And it's a big new expensive shiny toy, big replacement for De Gea. Obviously, people are going to be looking for any excuse to sort of go at him. Not necessarily United fans, but obviously opposition fan, rival fan stuff. Seemingly looking at any opportunity to sort of dig at him, and then there was the whole he got done from the halfway line in a friendly game like last week. But
that was under low though, to be fair.
Yeah, and it wasn't, to be fair, cracking finish. So Charlie Adam-esque. But but like I mean, what are your thoughts on him? Because I've seen mixed opinions from just football fans in general about the strengths and weaknesses of Onana. But like, surely as a United fan, it must feel like a bit of a breath of fresh air having a more modern goalkeeper for the first time in what feels like forever.
Yeah, I mean, arguably the first goalkeeper can play out from the back or like tries to play out from the back since Barthez, like, which is quite a long time ago.
Jesus.
Listen, but it's it's gonna be stressful. It's gonna be a very different experience watching him do Cruyff turns, trying to like beat the press. Like there was, I can't remember which game it was now. I don't think it was the Champions League final. There was an Inter game where I think he laid it off he played it to the centre back and ran on for a return for like a return ball. I was like, this guy's insane. Like, I don't want to see my centre backs doing that. Like, this is the goalkeeper, but he's obviously got like unbelievable trust in his ability. He has had clangers, he has made mistakes, but it doesn't seem to affect him, and I think that's like a really big mentality thing.
Yeah.
So he can obviously do all this stuff. His range of passing is incredible as well. Like he genuinely looks like a midfielder. Like, so what he can do with the ball, I don't think it's going to be necessarily, he's going to be playing balls through to strikers and things like that. But just the ability to stay calm when under pressure is going to be huge, because I think everyone else in that back part of the pitch, you got Casemiro, you got Martinez, you got Varane, are all really calm, comfortable on the ball. Like even Luke Shaw's like really good on the ball. So now we've got that kind of final piece of the puzzle. I think it should make a big difference in how we play. And not just that, I think he's a really good quality goalkeeper as well. I think
he's good.
He had the most saves in the Champions League last year, I think it was. He had one of the highest save clean sheet percentages in the Serie A. Like his save percentage is really high. I don't think he's very like dominant in the air. I don't think he claims a lot of crosses. I may be wrong, but like I remember looking at some numbers. So that's not his game. But as a shot stopper, really good, and obviously has the whole other part to his game. So I'm excited about it. Big signing, obviously. He's in his peak. He's worked with Ten Hag before, so he knows exactly what he's getting out of him. So I think it's a good signing. I mean, it's a United signing, another United signing that's played with Ten Hag before. So
yeah, no.
It seems like he's just going, you know what? I'll just take all these guys I've used before.
When you guys get some scouts, you're going to be cooking.
Yeah, he's just.
I thought he was younger than he is. I just looked there. He's 27. I thought he was like 24, 25. But so you're getting him at like his sort of peak. Hopefully, you're still getting him at his sort of peak of his powers now. Hopefully, like
yeah. Like
it's a really good. This is bit soccer I am. Great age. So
yeah. It's good signing at the right time. I think, like in his career and for us as well. Like we're in this transitional part where we're a few players away from finishing it off. I had a few other transfers you mentioned there. Mason Mount as well. Eyebrows raised a little bit on the price, I think, with 1 year left on his deal. But like it's an England regular. He was Chelsea's player of the season for 2 out of 3 years. He has shown in the past that he is a top level player. He got the assist in the Champions League final. I think he's had multiple double assist and goal seasons. He's got a great engine on him. He works hard. He looks really like from what I've seen in preseason and what I've seen of him previously, really tactically aware. Like he's great in the press. He understands the game at a really high level. I don't think he's had the best performances in preseason, but I think that'll come with time.
It's learning a whole new system, right? Like working under a new manager, like it's gonna not take loads of time, but I think with Ten Hag, because it's such a specific way of playing, definitely a little bit of adaptation. I think that needs to be allowed for.
Definitely, and Ten Hag said, I think it was this week or last week, like his goal in terms of what he wants to turn United into is to be the best transitional team in world football. And I think Mason Mount fits that perfectly. Like he's really physical. Like the guy runs all day, plays every game. And, he's at the end of the day, he's a decent goal scorer. He gets a lot of assists as well, good at set pieces. And he definitely brings a lot more energy and kind of physicality to that midfield over Eriksen, who is an unbelievable ball player. But like when I watched him in that Champions League, in the FA Cup final, he just got run rings around. Like
he's got no legs.
He's got no legs. He's great. He's a great player to bring in where you're going to dominate the ball or, bring on for the last 20 minutes when you just need someone to get the ball and just keep it. But he's not going to chase people down. He's not got into his game. So I think I'm going to make.
So I was going to say I'm going to make a bit of a wild. Well, that's probably my first hot take of the podcast. To be fair, I'm going to say I don't know if it's necessarily a hot take though, but I'm going to go for Chelsea fans here. I don't think there was a player last season who was, in terms of like from their own fan base, as disrespected as Mason Mount was. I don't think. But it's like, because Mason Mount, I saw from Chelsea fans last year, seemed to cop the most amount of stick for how bad Chelsea were last year. And I'm not saying Mount was good last year. He wasn't. But show me a Chelsea player who was good last season. They were all abysmal. Yeah. This is the guy who was their player of the season 2 years running. I think got double figures for goals and assists. That may have been 2 years running as well. I'm not entirely sure about that. And like, he seemed to be almost made the scapegoat for all of Chelsea's problems last year. And I don't understand it. And like, okay, could he have left a little bit better? Maybe. But like, I think given that he's come from their academy, he was probably on about, I don't know how much he was on, but he definitely was on the same level of wages as like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was or Koulibaly was. Like, damn right he wanted to be paid to a similar level with those guys because he was a big part of that team for the last couple of years. So I think for Chelsea fans to be so, like, just getting angry at him and make him out to be this sort of pantomime villain, I think it's just absolute nonsense. They just need to get over themselves.
100%. And I kind of understand why he wanted to leave at the end of it. Like,
yeah,
the offered him a contract, took away the contract, gave him a derisory contract, then finally wanted to try and keep him around. And I think at that point, he was like, you know what? Like, you've shown me no respect. Yeah. So I'm off. Like, I'll go this team who wants to pay me. Like,
yeah, like, don't get me wrong, he's not like Frank Lampard or anything. Like, he's not that type of like level player. But in terms of where Chelsea have been for the last couple of years, I think, like I said, in terms of like consistency, you got Reece James and Mason Mount. Like, I think they're the two that you could sort of look at as like the consistent, and Kante probably bar like the last season, but like they're like sort of the main consistents of Chelsea over the last couple of seasons. And like I found it so bizarre how many Chelsea fans were just like anti-Mount last year and like had this weird sort of agenda against him. I'm just like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, not having a good season. But again, who was?
Yeah. Point out like, one player that had a good season.
Like, in terms of...
I'll wait.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, at a stretch, you could say Reece James, but he was never fit.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't have him say he had a good season when he's played 5 games. Like, I don't know. Just Chelsea fans. What more can I say?
Yeah, well, just football fans in general on Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess. Like...
No, it's worse for Chelsea fans. Scum.
Yeah, sorry, we had one more bit aside. I agree on the Mount thing. I think he's going to be a good signing for us. I think he'll tie things together. I think he improves our squad. And with the final bit so far anyway, is Rasmus Højlund, who's come in. Poor lad seems to have broken his back with the pressure of being United's only striker already, so that's a good start. A lot of money on the kid. I think it's a lot of money on it, but I think they wouldn't have spent it were they not sure.
I was going to ask you. Sorry, just jump in. Like, so obviously, as a United fan, what's your expectation of him for this season?
Højlund.
Yeah.
I could see him. I can see us bringing in another striker, by the way, if we get all these transfers out. I'd like to see him start 25, 30 games, get 15 goals, and maybe do some sub appearances, something like that. Get him blooded in, get him going. If he fires up and gets going, then fair enough, and he keeps his place in the squad. If he doesn't kick off straight away, if he doesn't pick up where we all hope he will, or it's a poor season, then hopefully people don't get on his back too quickly. He reminds me of Darwin Núñez. Similar age, similar fee. I think like the similar like physicality, similar profile, like similar kind of player. So if he has a similar season to what he did last year, I'd be up with that. Liverpool fans seem to be up with it. He's just taken their number 9. So like they're nailing, they're showing that he's their main guy now. And I think he'll have a good season this year, Darwin Núñez, as a slight aside. I think he got in a lot of really good positions and he just didn't look confident. That's one thing that I don't think Højlund will struggle with. He seems like a really confident guy. From what I've seen of him, which admittedly is not that much, but from what I've seen of him and heard from him and people who have watched him, like a lot of Italian journalists, really think he's got a really bright future. So I think it's more of an investment in the future rather than an investment in the now.
Yeah, I've seen a few people. Like I was people in my Twitch chats were saying like yesterday, like the expectation's got to be for him to score at least 20 goals. I'm like, that's just not realistic in the slightest. Like I get it because of the transfer fee, and like I think back in the day, like the sort of narrative would be, you spend X amount on someone, you expect this sort of guarantee back. I don't think transfer fees necessarily work that way anymore. Like I think a lot of it, you are paying that amount of money because you're paying for that potential. You're paying for what he could. You're basically paying 70 million because it's like a 5-year investment. So you're hoping in 5 years' time he's going to be a guy who's netting 20, 25 goals a season regularly. But you're just paying a premium now to get him in at the start of his development rather than, sort of in the middle of it where it's going to be probably even more expensive if he does hit those heights.
Yeah, and like the big kind of comparison is Victor Osimhen, right? Like you're paying 70 million for him, why don't you pay another 30 and get Victor Osimhen? It's like, okay, it doesn't quite work like that though, because I bet Højlund's coming in a fraction of the contract that he'd be on. So he'll be getting 30, maybe not like 70, 80 grand a week, maybe a little bit more, whereas Harry Kane, who was being touted, wants 600 grand a week wherever he's going. You immediately, just like over the lifetime of the contract, it's like vastly superior sums of money.
Yeah.
And, let's be honest, like money in football is monopoly money. Like it's not real money. But you've still got to be able to kind of make that back. Like you've still got to be able to afford it. And it wouldn't be that far off with Victor Osimhen, obviously coming off a brilliant year, but it's a brilliant year. And it's to go from, where was he before? Was it Nice?
Nice. Yeah. Nice or was it Lille? It might have been Lille, actually.
Might have been Lille. Some French team anyway.
They're all the same.
They're all
not PSG, basically.
Yeah, just the mid-table obscurity of French football.
Second down to 20th.
But yeah, so he went there. Obviously, had a really good season. They, invested, I think, 15. No, sorry, they bought him for like 60 million. So they'll want to make a big, cut on top of that. And he's had 1 year. I think he's a great striker. Like as a striker, if you want that one directional striker who runs forward and kicks the ball in the goal, there's not many better. There's maybe, Erling Haaland. Like that's about it, really.
Yeah.
in terms of a slightly more multifaceted striker, then you look at people like Harry Kane and Lewandowski and that kind of stuff. And I think Højlund is a little bit more in that camp. He's a little bit more of a link-up player, someone who can get involved a little bit more in the game. And I think, if they're going for that kind of player, and obviously the links to Harry Kane as well, it shows that that's the kind of player that Ten Hag wants. Going for a Victor Osimhen, as good as he is, we've already got a one-directional player who tries to score loads of goals, and that's Rashford on the left wing.
Yeah.
You can't really have two of those guys because you've got to have somebody to offer the dynamism. So, big TLDR, big upfront fee. God, I can't speak.
Yeah.
But over the period of the contract, it's not going to be as much. I think he's got a ton of potential, and we'll see where it goes. Like I said, I can still see us bringing in another striker.
Do you know what? Genuinely, Skamaka would have been perfect for the Ten Hag system.
He would
genuinely.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God, I'm so sad.
This is the thing, is like, it feels like he's gone, and he would have been perfect for the next manager that comes in.
Yeah, I know. It's partly why I was hoping Moyes would go, because it's like, oh God. That's why I know we got Danny Ings. It's fine.
Yeah,
I guess
he'll be great for the 8 games he can play.
Yeah. Oh well. But I think for United, I think it's like I say, it's weird for me because it doesn't. This is the first time, probably since Ferguson left, that it feels like United have an actual strategy. Actually, that's a lie. I feel like they had a bit of a strategy when Ollie was there, and they were buying like Maguire and Dan James and those sort of. I think there was a strategy there. I just don't think it was necessarily the correct strategy. Whereas it feels like there's a lot more. It feels a lot more in sync, like in terms of what Ten Hag wants. I believe you've got a new director of football or sporting director or some bloke who sorts out all the, He
kind of came in last year, I think, yeah.
Okay, yeah. That guy. Did a guy sat down a pub with all the United fans? Is that the guy I'm thinking of?
No, that's the new director.
Oh, just director. Okay.
Oh, it's Richard Arnold.
Richard Arnold, okay,
the guy who is doing the transfer. It's actually Darren Fletcher and John Murta, who I think
that's the one.
I think have been at the club for ages, to be honest. I think Murta came in under Moyes, or he's worked with Moyes in the past. But they've taken over that, and they're obviously working a lot in sync. But like I said before, it just seems like a load of players who have played for Ten Hag at some point in their career, or played in Holland. Like that seems to be it. They're the two tick marks. Like, are you Dutch? Have you played in Holland, or have you played in Ten Hag? Because even Amrabat, who's looking like he's coming in, he played for him at AZ.
Yeah.
So he's just getting the band back together, isn't he?
If it works, it works. Do you know what I mean? But I do think eventually it's got to get to a point where United need to kind of start maybe looking elsewhere for
maybe Højlund's the start of that. Hopefully,
potentially. I watched. I don't watch a lot of Serie A, but I found myself watching a couple of Atalanta games last year. There was one game, I think it was against Lazio, and he's rapid. For a guy, he's like 6'4", dude can run. I think he picked the ball up quick. I think he picked the ball up just inside his own half, and just that thing where he just sort of knocks it past the defender and just goes, "See ya," just sprints past him.
Yeah, very Haaland-esque. Whereas a guy that size should not accelerate that fast.
No, I don't know what they're doing over that part of the world to produce these meaty men. But
it's all that olive oil
problem. Yeah, probably was. Well, by the way, I've got to say this as well. I'm starting to see a little bit on Twitter and from some pundits on Sky Sports and stuff as well. Can we stop comparing any new striker who's quite tall that comes to the Premier League? Can we stop comparing him to Erling Haaland? It's really boring.
Well, that's all you heard about Darwin Núñez last year, wasn't it?
Mate. And it's worse now with Højlund because their names are similar. Yeah. That's literally where the
Big,
comparisons
blonde, Scandinavian, quick. Yeah. It's like, oh, God. Who's going to score more? It's Haaland. Haaland's going to score more. Haaland's going to score 80 goals this year or something.
It's like, guys, you're paid pundits. Do better than this, please. But sorry, that's my little dig at the mainstream.
The mainstream. Keep it real.
Yeah, keep it real.
Well, discussing transfers, and obviously, there's a lot of business going on in the transfer window. A lot of teams have strengthened, and that is going to affect the league table. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of changes. I think this is the hardest, top 8. I have no idea how to predict this.
I've got my top 8 figured out, I think, and I can back my reasons up for why. But it could all change.
I think I know the teams that are going to be in there.
Yeah,
I just have no idea what order they're going to be in. It's just going to be an absolute jumble, and kind of similar mid-table. Like we were saying earlier, we think there are some teams nailed on for relegation. So I'll tell you, I'll ask you now. who do you think is going to win the league next year? Who is the champion next year? Who makes the top 4? Who makes the rest of the European spots? And who those 3 teams do you think are nailed on for relegation?
All right, I'll go with my most controversial ones to start off with. I think Manchester City are going to win the league next year.
Bold. I'll clip that. You're going to get clipped up on that. Unbelievable.
I think. Do you know what? I had a little seed of doubt after watching. I know the community. You can't really base loads off the Community Shield. I call like this. I didn't catch on to it. I watched like most of the second half of the Community Shield.
Yeah.
I do think they are missing Gundogan, and I think as good as Kovacic is, he's not quite the Gundogan replacement. Yeah. I think they've identified someone. I think he's Brazilian, might play in East London, so I think they might be okay. Both of West Ham's best midfielders last year are going to be battling out for the title this year. How things have changed. I think if they get Paqueta, I think that's like, I know they lost Mahrez, but I think they've got enough depth still to sort of get. I think Cole Palmer might get more minutes this year. They might even go and get another winger if they feel they need to. But Bernardo Silva stay in, which is massive for them. Kyle Walker stay in, massive for them. Obviously, Gvardiol, like, it feels like the Gvardiol signing's kind of just not really been talked about loads by anyone because it's just what City do now. Like, it's been they just go and buy the best players available. So it's like, oh, they got Gvardiol, did they? Okay, yeah, fair enough.
They seem to buy a world-class centre-back every year. Like, it's like Pep goes, we need more defenders. And like, I've seen a load of people trying to mud him as well. Like, Gvardiol is like, oh, did you see him against Argentina? He got turned inside out by Messi. It's like, yeah, every defender's been turned inside out by Messi. He's literally the best player in the world ever.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Like,
Bit that.
Yeah. He's the best player ever. He has done that to every defender. Like that isn't a negative against him. I think the kid looks really good from what I've seen of him. I've seen him a lot internationally.
Brilliant. He's so good. And that, do you know what? That is also why I think they're going to do it this year, because as good as they are going forward, they've now got a strong case to say they've just got the best defense in the league. They were the run-in of last season. I didn't think a Pep team would be capable of, like, and I'm not saying, like, when I say how good defensive they were, I'm not saying they played like a Sean Dyche Burnley team. Like, they were still City. They were still scintillating going forward and scored loads of goals, but they just looked like they weren't going to concede a goal between sort of like March and the end of the season. Like, Stones in that new role was excellent. Obviously, you got Walker. Ake looks like a brand new player out of nowhere.
Yeah. And
now you add Gvardiol into that mix. They may lose a couple of goals from Mahrez going, but they'll concede a hell of a lot less this season. And I think that's going to be the difference. They'll be able to shut games out a lot easier than who their closest challengers will be.
I think it's being a bit undersold how much they're going to miss Mahrez, you know. I think he's a wonderful player. Best first touch I've ever seen. But I think they're really going to miss him. Obviously, Bernardo Silva's still there. I don't think he's as dynamic or goal scoring. I think he's in for a shot, one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, Bernardo Silva. But he's a very different dynamic. So unless Phil Foden can get his form back and find his place in that wing and take that spot, maybe that's the plan. Or like you say, maybe they bring someone else in. I think
Paqueta can play out on the right as well.
Yeah,
Paqueta can. Like, I don't think he's done it for us. Well, he did once now, but like it wasn't great. But like, I think he has played out on the wings for like, or the wide areas for Lyon before. I think he's done it for Brazil a few times. Like, he's got a dynamism to sort of and adapt, sort of positionally quite different enough so he can play different roles basically in the team. So I think he can offer that as well. So can Foden. So I guess it doesn't really, like, you can sort of interchange between various options in that City squad.
You get that a lot with like those City players, don't you? Where like basically you play in the final third and they're all interchangeable. Like they can all go where they want and they're all brilliant at what they do. It's disgusting, really.
And I agree with you. They probably will. It has been a little bit undersold of how much they are going to miss Mahrez, but I also just have faith that Pep, because what will happen is they'll start the season how they played last year, and then Pep will get bored and go, I'm just going to try something different. And then it'll work, and they'll just go and romp the league again. Because that seems what happens every year with Pep. Like, he'll just change the system up. They'll have they won't have a perfect start. It'll be a bit wobbly. Then they'll make a few tweaks or invent a new system, and then it'll just be perfect between then and the end of the season. And I think there's a team who will run them close again, but I just can't see them. I can't see them slipping up this year. I think that, and the thing is, they've got something to play. I know, like they've done the treble. They've got the Champions League monkey off their back. But 4 in a row has never been done before in the Premier League. And that'll be more than enough motivation for Pep to use to get them up for it. So,
yeah. I just kind of have flashbacks of when Liverpool sold Mane. And I said, Liverpool are going to have a really tough season here because people underestimate how much they're going to miss him. Lo and behold, they finished 5th. Where it looked like they were going to finish mid-table the entire season. So just call me Nostradamus, you know.
Yeah, we'll have to wait. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how you do cope without Mahrez being there. I do think Arsenal will run them close again this year, though. I have to say, I'm really impressed with. Obviously, I'm biased because they bought my boy. They bought my boy Declan, but they've got such a good team, and they're going to get better and better.
They need to push for it. They've spent 400 million in the last 2 years. They ain't doing this on a shoestring budget. This isn't like, bargain basement signings.
No, of course
400 million on big name players. Obviously last year they spent a ton of money. This year they've signed Rice for 90, 100 million, whatever it was.
105 million is going to be the title fee.
All in. Kai Havertz has gone for big money. I think Jurrien Timber's a big signing as well.
Great, yeah.
Yeah,
these mustard.
The big signings, and there's been, a few players coming back from loan, like Florian Balogun, who look really good out on loan. But I don't think there's, rumors he might go somewhere. A few players left, obviously, like the lost Xhaka, who was actually really, really a big part of that team last year. I think with Declan Rice, you get everything that he offers and more physicality, dynamism. But yeah, they need to be pushing for the title or going for other cups or having a run in Europe.
Absolutely. I think if they only finished 5 points off. I know they had a massive wobble at the end and they did kind of blow it. But to only be 5 points off, if you said to Arsenal fans at the beginning of last season, you'll finish second and only 5 points behind City, who were one of the greatest ever teams we've seen in the Premier League. Well, I think that team from last year's got a case for it if they go on and win it again this year. Arsenal fans would have taken that, and I think they'll probably, if they can get even 4 points, 3 points off them this year, they'll be happy with that. I was listening to another podcast the other day, and they were saying they feel like not this season, the season after is where Arsenal really mount a serious title challenge and run it as close as Liverpool probably did a few years back. I think what they're building is scarily good, and they're all so young, which is the scary thing as well. There's so much more room to develop.
The one thing that does need to be factored in, though, is that the reason they could push so hard last year was no Europe. Didn't have any European football. And this year they've got Champions League. Well, not real.
Hey. Show some damn respect.
It's real when you win it, all right? It's real when you win it. But you know what I mean? There's going to be a lot more pressure on the performances in the Champions League this year as well. So they're going to be wanting to take that seriously. I think they've got a good squad as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think that's going to be a big test that, Wednesday, Saturday, all big games. There's no weeks off in the Champions League, really. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do with it. How do you see the rest of the top four lining out then? So obviously you say Arsenal. I assume you think can finish second.
I think so. Yeah, I think they're going to be really good again this year. In third place, see this changed a few weeks ago because of some transfers that happened. In third place, I am going to go for United. I think United are still quite a bit away from mounting a serious title challenge, but I think they'll be comfortable in the top four. And again, back in the Champions League, had a similar situation, right? Had Europa League last season, back in the Champions League this year. I think they'll be fine. And I think the additions they've made are really, really solid. But with Onana, and especially, there'll be a little bit of a bedding in period. I actually had Liverpool originally finished in second because I really liked the additions of Szoboszlai and McAllister. But really, really good additions to that midfield. And then they went and sold Henderson and Fabinho, which, fair enough, it's probably the right time to sell them, but I don't think they planned for losing both of them in the same window. I think
those two going and Milner is a lot of leaders gone.
Yeah.
All at once.
And
all in the same position as well.
Yeah, and they're now in a situation where you've got Bajcetic and Thiago as your sort of number 6 options. And Thiago, if he can stay fit, sure, but I think you also I think Thiago was a big part of the problem for Liverpool. I think because when you play Thiago, you can only really play one way because of how good he is with the ball. He's such a technically good footballer, but he's not an out and out DM like Fabinho was, or he's not got the dynamism that Henderson maybe had. He's a bit.
For me, he was one of the reasons why Liverpool didn't look the team they were. I know they had a ton of injuries, but they didn't look the team they did the season before when they won the title. Because when the ball goes to him in midfield, it stays in midfield, where Liverpool always looked at their best when they were doing that, like Ten Hag wants to do with United. They were the best transitional team in football. They got it forward really quickly into the channels, played kind of quite direct football, and got in the throats of people. When Thiago got there, it got into midfield and it gummed up. And I realised it was brought in to help break down those low block teams, but it also stopped them playing the way that made them successful, really.
Yeah, and in terms of breaking down low block teams, like if you've got like there's a player in that who plays in that sort of area of the pitch who's more. Again, I feel like I'm doing Thiago a disservice. I think he's a really good footballer, but I think the way I personally think Trent's better at that. Like you saw that new role Trent took up last season, where he was playing a bit more inverted and drifting into midfield. Like there's so much sauce. Like I think his range of passing and just I don't know. I found he was a lot better at unlocking defenses than I've ever really seen Thiago be, to be honest. But if they get someone like Lavia in, I think they'll be fine. But if they don't get another defensive midfielder in between now and the time the window shuts, it could be quite hairy for them maybe missing out on top 4 again. But I think they will be okay. I think they finished the season quite strongly. This new way of playing they've got going with Trent's new role. Although that could also be affected with Henderson going, because Henderson did do a lot of the covering of what the sort of right back spot Trent would leave. So I'd be interested to see if they're going to stick with that now that Henderson's not there anymore.
Well, as a United fan, hopefully it all blows up in the face and they'll get relegated. So,
and in terms of Europe, then I think I've been a bit like I think I'm quite fair here. I've actually gone for Chelsea in 5th. I'm giving Chelsea the benefit of the doubt in the fact they got no Europe this year. I really like Poch as a manager and as a coach. I think he's really good, and I think he gets a bit of an unfair rap. Can't speak today. I think he gets a lot of unfair stick. But I think he's a really good appointment for Chelsea, and I think the squad that they're building, they obviously still need to let go of quite a few players, but you can see what they're doing. Young squad, young players that he can work with and develop. They've got some really, really good players there, and I think there are going to be some players who disappointed last year who are going to step up this year. Mudryk, I think Mudryk could kick on this year. Like he's looked pretty good in pre-season. He's bulked up quite a lot as well. Like he doesn't seem as lightweight as he did last year.
This Chelsea team reminds me a bit of that Spurs team that he built that was really good. Like a lot of young players with a bit of experience dripped in, like all able to play in a certain way. It's going to be interesting to see because by all intents and purposes, I mean, I can't say I've watched any of the games, but all the reports and everything I've read is Chelsea been really impressive in preseason. And I know preseason doesn't really count in terms of results, but performances certainly do.
Yeah.
And how teams are setting up and how players are performing. So I guess it's going to be a big year for him. As a manager, anyway.
Yeah, I think this year can be a bit of a free hit. Not in the sense that they can have a season like they did last year again, but like I don't think there's going to be much pressure on them to win anything. Like they might, they can go for the FA Cup or the League Cup, whatever. But I don't think anyone's really going to care if they don't win the FA Cup or the League Cup. There's no pressure on them to win the league or anything. I think the big pressure for them is to get into the top 6, get themselves back in the top 6, and just keep building. And I think he'll get them. I think he'll, like I said, the way Liverpool's midfield is sort of going at the moment, and the fact they still need a few more additions. I think if they don't get those additions in, Chelsea, I think are the ones who could run them quite close in terms of that 4th spot. And as for 6th place, I've gone for Aston Villa, which from what I've seen, it's not a very it's not an uncommon shout. I think a lot of people are tipping Villa to do well this year. I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, well, they've got Europe." Like now, and this is coming from me, who adores the competition because we won it. The Conference League, whilst it's great for clubs like West Ham and Villa to have a chance of winning something, and I wouldn't swap that Conference League run out for anything. It was so much fun last year. But the quality of teams is not very good up until you get to the quarterfinals. That's when we didn't play anyone good until Ghent, arguably, who are in the quarters. And if you don't want to count them, we had RZ in the semi-finals, then Fiorentina in the final. So you could even argue we didn't play anyone that good until the final. And I think Villa's, have got the squad depth to just put out a second string team throughout the group stages and the first knockout rounds and get through quite comfortably. And they've got the man whose only mission in life is to win any European competitions, not the Champions League, in Unai Emery.
Yeah, the most prolific European title winner in the last decade. And he's building something really good there. And yeah, I agree. I think that they're going to be pushing for that top 6, top 8. I think they're a really strong team. They're only adding better players. And they seem to be backing the manager as well. They seem to be letting him invest in the positions that they need. So it's going to be interesting for them.
Got a director of football in as well, who I think he may have worked with in the past, and that seems to have made a big difference. Moussa Diaby is going to be scary to play against this year because that boy can run, and he's not like an Adama who can just run. He's got a lot of technical ability as well. And I think Ollie Watkins and Buendia and all these like Jacob Ramsey, like they're just such a dangerous side, Villa, and I think they're good going forward. Really annoying to try and break down and score against. They're going to cause a lot of teams a lot of problems this year, Villa, and I back them to get 6th.
Yep, and 7th, last European spot technically.
Newcastle United. I've said this before to people, and they've gone, "Oh, that's harsh." I don't think it is. I don't think, as much as they're going to say in this documentary that's coming that, "Oh no, Champions League was the plan all along for this season," you're not convincing me it was. I don't think their plan was to get top 4. They probably thought there was a chance, but I don't think they would have hung their entire season on getting Champions League last year. Did brilliantly to get it, and Eddie Howe was fantastic last year in terms of how he got that Newcastle team playing.
Eddie Howe should have won Manager of the Year last year.
I agree.
He did a phenomenal job. Not only just like with bringing in new players, and he did sign new players and get a tune out of them, but getting players that were already at the club look like new players.
Mate, Joe Linton.
Yeah, Joe Fabian Schär though as well. Like he was a guy who I thought was kind of just like a pretty poor Premier League centre back.
Yeah,
brilliant last year next to Sven Botman.
You got Jacob Murphy banging in 20-yard screamers for fun. Like it's just Jacob Murphy. Like
the reinvention of Miguel Almiron as well. Like he got so much out of that team. The one thing that I think might hold Newcastle up is these new time wasting rules and the added minutes, because it's highly publicized. The Newcastle wasted the most amount of time in the league last year, and it allowed them to play that high intensity game because like they take their time around set pieces, they take a lot of set pieces. You know, they waste time where they can to get their energy back and do that really high intensity, playing style, which got them so much success last year. And you throw in the Champions League. It's going to be really tough for them. So yeah,
I think they'll be fine. Like I think
I don't think
it'll be close.
Get relegated or anything. But
no.
I think they'll struggle to keep that energy and because they didn't really have many injuries either. Like not to like the key first team players. I think they might struggle to keep that energy and that level up for that many games for the entire season.
Yeah, I think if you offered Newcastle top 7. They'd be with their first season in Champions League. I think they'd be okay with that. I'm pretty sure, and I don't think that squad's even like. It's like you said, Howe got so much out of that squad. If you look at that squad on paper, you can't say that it's Champions League quality. Like, well, at least the team from last season. Like, you can't say Dan Burns a Champions League level left back, or that Fabian Schär's a Champions League level centre back. Like, he worked miracles that team, and I think there's only playing with that level of intensity will only last for so long, and also teams will have figured Newcastle out and treat them with a little bit more respect than maybe they would have done last season. And I think teams will drop. I've seen it happen with West Ham when we had those couple of seasons. Teams will eventually just start going, we'll just drop up 5-10 yards further back.
Yeah.
And now you have to try and break us down. And I saw teams do that to Newcastle last year, and they did struggle at times to sort of break teams down who just sat in against them. So it'll be interesting to see how they cope with that. But yeah, I think 7th they'll be really happy with.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much almost a photo fit of my predicted top 7.
Oh, nice.
I've got Man City winning it. My bias is showing by having Man United in second.
Fair enough.
I think if things click, we can have a good season. And obviously, like I say, Champions League for Arsenal, they might struggle a little bit. But like I say, my bias is showing. Arsenal and Liverpool making up the top 4. I've got Chelsea, Newcastle and Villa in a slightly different order. But that's it. I think if any of those teams slip up, I think Brighton could be there. I think Spurs are going to be too far off for this season. I think they're going to play some really interesting football, but I don't know how they're going to defend. So they could be a proper glass cannon team this year.
I know you said earlier about like you can't really read too much in the friendlies, but I agree with you in the sense you can read off like tactical setups and performance and stuff. We played Spurs. Granted, I think it was their first friendly. It was our like second or third. So there was obviously a bit of a difference in fitness levels and stuff. But we played them in a friendly in Australia for like start of the month. They were whole game. They just left 2 centre backs back. Everyone else bombed forward.
Yeah,
and we didn't even have all of our best players available. Like, and we were playing like a mix of youth and first teamers, and we were just able to cut through them so easily. And I think there are going to be a lot of teams who are going to find it quite easy to just soak up some pressure for a bit. But if you can get out and hit him on the break, you'll have a lot of space to play in. And I think Ange could do well. I also think that if he gets off to a rough start, Spurs think they're a top 6 club still. Like obviously I'm biased because I don't like Tottenham, but I have my reservations about Spurs' time in the top 6 being still a thing. I don't really think it is, to be honest. but they still think they are. Levy still thinks they are, especially if Kane stays, they're going to think they are. If he gets off to a bad start, I don't think the fans are going to have, because you bring Ange in for like a 3, 4, 5-year project. I don't think Spurs fans are going to have the patience for that. If they're getting further and further away from the top 4, all of a sudden the want for a trophy is going to be massively outweighed by, well, no, we've got to get back into the Champions League though. So I think Spurs' time in the sort of the top 6 conversation is kind of done for a while, I think, especially if Kane goes this summer.
And like we said, like how well Villa have been doing, Newcastle with all the money, and Brighton as well. Like it just seem to keep unearthing absolute gems out of nowhere, like players I've never heard of come in and look like the best player in the world.
Just bring a bunch of regens.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's going to be. They remind me, like this Spurs team, from what the little I have seen of them in the preseason, they remind me of that Liverpool side that were incredibly open, but just battered everyone because of the pressure, but they just don't have that quality of player. So they're playing a similar way, but leaving too much space and not able to kind of make it count at the other end because they just don't have as good of players as that Liverpool side did. From like the rest of the table, it's just basically kind of put all the names in a hat and pick them out. Like I think there's a lot of teams that aren't really going to struggle. For me, I've got from 8th to 15, should we say. I've got Brighton, Spurs, Brentford, Palace, Fulham, West Ham, Everton, and then I've got Nottingham Forest. Like they're my kind of mid-table teams. You could see Spurs finishing 8th. You could see them finishing 13th. You could see Brentford higher or lower. Like it's really kind of a bit of a toss-up. I think Everton are going to do a lot better this year. They seem to have done some really good transfers. Had a good bit of business. I think Dyche with that 6 months under his, got his feet under the table, is going to get them playing well. I thought they played really well at the end of last year.
That Brighton game, they were really good.
Yeah,
they battered Brighton out of nowhere.
It was weird. Like they ended up only just surviving basically due to other people not being able to stay up.
Yeah,
but there was some good signs there, and I think a full preseason with them, some extra signings, some forward depth. I think they're going to be fine. But let's get on to the relegation dogfight, and I'll go first with this one. I think there are 3 teams nailed on to go down. 2 of them, I think Sheffield United and Wolves are going down. I think Wolves are an absolute disaster. They've lost all their best players. They've sold their best defender, their best midfielder, their captain. They've lost João Moutinho. They've not retained him. They've signed a 50 million striker who couldn't score goals last year when they had him on loan. And they've just sacked their manager 3 days before the season starts. So I just don't see. Gary O'Neill did a fantastic job with Bournemouth, don't get me wrong. But
it's completely different circumstances though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so different. I think it's just a mess. And I see Wolves going down. I think Sheffield United are the same.
Yeah.
They've lost their best players. I don't think they're really signing anyone. They're actually in absolute financial turmoil. Unfortunately, I think that they're just nailed on to go down. It'll be good for them out for the club in the long term because they'll get the Premier League money. They'll get some parachute payments. Hopefully, they can sort themselves out because they're a good club. I like Sheffield United. And as much as I'd love a fairy tale story, I think Luton are going to go down. Yeah. I think Luton are going to do a derby in 2011 or something. I think like it's not I hope they do. It's just you look at that team and it looks like a League One team.
I was watching something the other day and someone summed it up perfectly for Luton. They're building a team to come back up. Do you know what I mean? So they're using. I think it's kind of what Norwich used to do. They come up. And obviously Norwich, I think, had a bit more expectation to get promoted. I think Luton have come up out of nowhere. And rather than going, let's just spend all the money we're getting and just trying to stay up and spend loads of money on wages, I think they're probably just looking and going, probably going to go down anyway. Let's make sure that when we do go down, we've got a squad that's really good so we can compete again to try and get back into the playoffs or automatic spots again. Because I'm just looking through the list now. Like, got Marvelous Nakamba back, who was really liked there, I think, last season. But it's like Marvelous Nakamba, Tatty Chong, Ryan Giles from Wolves, Ross Barkley joined today, like out of nowhere. I just don't think there's a Premier League level team there, and I get it. I don't blame them. Like I don't think they expected to go up last season, but it's just the quality's just not there. I don't think.
I mean, you say they look like they're making a team to try and get promoted again. I think that to me it looks like a team that is trying to not get relegated from the Championship. Like it genuinely. Like, I'm not being mean. I'm not intentionally being mean. It looks like a mid-table Championship team.
Yeah.
And like I say, I'd love a Cinderella story where like they stay up and it all goes incredibly well for them.
It reminds me of Huddersfield.
Yeah.
When they first came up,
very much
like,
so.
But I just don't think. But Huddersfield at least had like a couple of like players they took up some punts on that did well for that first 6 months. Like, I just don't even think Luton have that really. So
yeah, I can see them being the bottom three. I'm guessing we agree on the bottom three, by the way.
Oh yeah, Wolves are. Like Sheffield United, like I say, lost their best player. A lot of their better players from last year were loans, and they haven't been able to get them back. I think it was Tommy Doyle and McAtee from City.
Yeah.
No, it's just enjoy the year, enjoy the away trips, Sheffield United fans. I don't think it's not going to be an enjoyable season.
Enjoy the
Wolves are an absolute car crash, though.
Yeah,
like it feels like Wolves and West Ham this summer are having like a little mini competition so you can send their fan base into a depressive state quicker. Do you know what I mean? Like, and Wolves are definitely winning it because at least we're signing people. Like, we're leaving it late, but like you say, Neves gone, Coutinho gone, even Jimenez. I know Jimenez hasn't been the same player since the injury, but like, he's gone.
Connor Cody's gone. Like,
Cody's gone.
He was the captain until they shipped him out on loan.
And there's all they've brought in is Matt Doherty back on a free transfer.
Yeah.
Like,
they've signed Boubacar Traore, young midfielder from Metz. They've signed Matthias Cunha, who like he looked like a decent player last year, but like they spent 50 million on him. On a forward player that's not going to score him goals. They've lost Jimenez. And granted, Jimenez, he unfortunately hasn't looked the shadow of the player that he was before he had that horrible injury. Understandably so. Like I can imagine, like we were saying earlier, players lose their confidence. I can imagine that being the biggest confidence hit when you get your head smashed.
Yeah.
That's but you know, him still being an option there was good for them, but I don't see where they score goals. I don't see how they keep the goals out, and I only see them going down. Prove me wrong, Wolves, but like
the thing is as well. I understand. I feel bad for saying this about Gary O'Neill, right? Because I thought we said Eddie Howe should have won Manager of the Year last year. I actually think Gary O'Neill should have been with a shout. I don't think Gary O'Neill was even nominated last year. I thought he did a phenomenal job last season with that Bournemouth team. Because Scott Parker was right. He shouldn't have said it, but he was right. The team wasn't really good enough to stay up. But obviously, they got the extra investment in January as bring players in. But like, O'Neill made them a really difficult team to beat, but they weren't necessarily boring to watch either. Like, they still tried to go and win games. They just made them a lot better defensively. The difference is, though, like, it's so much easier to do that, I think, when you're the underdog. And Bournemouth, everyone had Bournemouth finishing rock bottom last season. Like, they even did a video about it. Like, with all the people who finished 20th. I think it's a lot easier to galvanize that group and use that as motivation to sort of go, let's go prove all these people wrong. Like, we're underdogs, but let's go out there and do what we can to stay up. Wolves, I can't imagine players like Matthias Cunha and Matthias Nunes and the players in that Wolves team are going to have that same mentality, just because I don't think they signed up for a relegation battle when they joined Wolves. And I've seen it before with West Ham teams down the years when you sign players, you sign certain players. Like we had that year where we had like Felipe Anderson and people like that, and they join because they think you're going to level up, and then you have a bad start to the season, and then it gets worse, and because those players haven't got the right attitude, or they just think, I didn't sign up for this, screw it, if we go down, it doesn't bother me, I'll just get a move somewhere else anyway. They just stop putting the effort in the performances, and it just snowballs.
It's very reminiscent of Leeds, because look at the mentality of a lot of the players at Leeds last year when things were going wrong. Look how many players have just left who are looking to leave. Like I say, I'm not playing, and they're just out of the door.
And it's not like they've brought O'Neill in and he can then go and bring in some of those types of players that are going to be up for the fight. Like they haven't got the money to do it. They can't even fork up £5 million to sign Aaron Cresswell. Like they just, for whatever reason, FFP, the owner's got financial troubles. They can't buy anyone. So you're just kind of stuck with what you've got. So unless you just take a punt and go, let's get some of the kids in, because they'll care. Like they'll. I'm not saying the Wolves players currently don't care, but I'm just saying when it starts going wrong, don't be surprised to see a lot of them start down tools. Because like Matthias Nunes has been linked with Liverpool since he went to Wolves. Like he'll know, I think he's George Mendes' agent. He knows he'll get a move if they go down. Same with Cunha. He'll go back to Spain. He'll be fine. Like they're a mess. And the fact, like I said, the fact Lopetegui's walked pretty much. Like, I think I think it's just they just agreed. I think he wanted to leave and they just agreed a compensation package or whatever. But the fact he looked at him and went, "Oh, I'm not working with this."
Yeah,
like
the worry volumes. Is that it took this long to, for him to get out the door. That's the worry. When it, like, if it was the start, like the end of last season, or like even like 2 months ago or a month ago, it gives a new manager time to come in and see what he's got to work with and see if he can get anything to work.
Yeah,
like we say, we're 3 days away from the season starting. Like, and the quality of the teams in that in the mid table now, you have a bad first 10-15 games and you cut adrift.
Yeah. It's going to be a long season for Wolves. My sympathies are very much with Dave Azzopardi.
I was going to say poor Azzopardi. We'll have to get him on around January, and if he's if he's not hit the bottom of the bottle already.
I was going to say, if he can get himself out of bed.
Well, we've kind of gone through our predictions for the year. We did a few more talking points, but I'm very aware of the fact that I know it's the first episode of this. We are at an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh wow!
And we don't want to kind of bore everyone to tears. So we'll call it there. We've got a few other things we're going to bring in, but we can always bring that for the next time. Tune in next time.
It's going to be a long old season. There's plenty of talking points coming up, I'm sure.
Yeah, make sure you tune in next time, and we'll touch some of those. Obviously, next time we'll have seen the first round of the Premier League games and have our thoughts on it. We can have Breezy's live meltdown on what will be I'm sure, a fantastic loss.
It'll be a resounding 0-0 draw at Bournemouth. I can't wait.
0-0 win at Bournemouth. Well, yeah, we'll be back next week. Obviously, we both stream on Twitch, so you can catch us live there. Where can people find you, Breezy?
M_Breezy FM on everywhere, pretty much. But yeah, Twitch 3 nights a week.
Smashing. And I'm Big Meaty, and it's that everywhere. Cheers for tuning in, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Apologies for the XL version of the opening of this opening episode of this podcast.
And if people did enjoy the podcast, Dan, where can they find us on Twitter? Yes,
they can. We are at United Frontcast. Pretty much everywhere, or should be everywhere, as long as I pulled my finger out and made all the accounts. So go follow us on Twitter. And yeah, get involved. Let us know what you thought. I'll catch you all next time.
Bye, everyone. Come on, you wines.
Bye.